And Melkor decided that he wanted his own music, and he introduced a new theme that was that brought some discord into the harmony.
But Melkor's not human still. I mean, these are
no.
Okay.
Essentially, he's Satan.
Oh, okay.
He's the he became Morgoth.
Okay.
Because Morgoth is another name for him, but that was after he had rebelled, and he stole the light of the trees of Valinor. Elbereth, who is also Varda, who is the wife of Manwë, was the one that captured the light of the stars and put them into the trees of Valinor. And for,
is this kind of a Promethean theme that?
Sort of.
So the devil steals the light from these holy trees.
He rather than stealing it, just destroys it.
He destroys it, so it's an act of envy, kind of.
It's an act of envy. It's not.
Yes.
It's not that he gets it. It's that he has destroyed it.
Yeah.
He does it with the help of the spider Ungoliant, who is the ancestress of what's the one in Shelob.
Oh yeah.
You guys remember Shelob?
Shelob is a huge spider in the Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
That's the one.
He even appears in the movie, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely in the movie. That's a big part of the movie.
That's a.
So there's just ties back everywhere you look to that. Sauron then was one of the Maiar. The Maiar are a lesser order of beings than the Valar.
Okay.
And he was seduced by Melkor. And then took over after Melkor was finally destroyed.
Melkor is destroyed?
Yes. There's this enormous war that goes on for ages.
Oh, interesting.
Way in the past, and in the end of it, at last, Thangorodrim, which was Melkor's fortress, is broken, and Melkor himself is banished from the universe, basically.
And this all occurs even before the Lord of the Rings even begins.
So in the Lord of the Rings, there's a place where Gandalf says something to the effect that Sauron himself is but an emissary. He's not, and that's the background of that. Sauron is just one of the servants of Melkor. And then it details all of his relationships with the Númenóreans.
Who were they?
They were the descendants of the first men, the Edain, and one of the Edain, well, there were three of them that intermarriages between the Edain and the firstborn, which are the elves. So there's Beren and Luthien, there's Dior and Elwing, and then Dior and can't remember her name. And then Erendil and Elwing. And Erendil and Elwing had twin sons who were Elros and Elrond. And they were given the choice whether to be of mankind or of elven kind. Because
prior to their birth, how can you choose which race you belong to? What's the magic behind that?
Not before their birth. After they were born, they were given that choice.
Okay.
And Elros chose to be a man, and Elrond chose to be an elf.
Okay.
But that's why he's called Elrond half-elven in the Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
And that's the reason that Arwen also had that same choice to make. And when she chose to stay and not go on the ship to Valinor, she was dooming herself to human death.
Now you're talking about an actual character in the Lord of the Rings, right?
Oh,
the one, right? The one that fell in love with
Aragorn.
Aragorn.
Yes, and her father is Elrond, and he's in the Lord of the Rings quite a lot.
Well, why would they be making this choice so late in the day? I mean, it sounded to me at first like you were saying this decision to belong to the race of men or the race of elves was something that happened in some prehistoric past, or back when all these races were coming into existence. And
no, this okay. Long ages after that beginning was when these marriages took place.
Okay.
And the children of those marriages had to choose at some point which kindred to belong to. Anyway, Elros chose to be a man, and he was given this wonderful realm of westernness, which is also called Númenor, and he was the father of a long, long line of kings. At the end of that line of kings, there were the king himself and others were seduced by Sauron to violate the ban of the Valar. The Valar had said, men are never to come here to Valinor. Elves can, but not men.
Okay.
That God's gift to mankind is death.
That's a gift.
That's a gift. And
Why is that? Do they illuminate, do they explain that, or?
To some extent, that basically even if you live a long time, you don't live long enough to be bored or to be so weary of the world that you just assume you didn't exist or something like that, I guess.
Well, the elves in Lord of the Rings do look a little world weary to me.
Yeah, they do. And they've been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And
By the way, does the westernness, is that some kind of symbolic reference to Western civilization, or?
I'm not sure, but...
if the hobbits are the English, then maybe...
Yeah. Tolkien definitely had an idea of the West as the locus of the... Valinor is in the West, but in the far West.
Really? Okay.
And Westernness was kind of halfway.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, when they violated the ban and chose to sail to Valinor, then the Valar essentially sank their island, Westernness. So it's like Atlantis.
Really?
Yeah.
My gosh, that's complicated.
And that whole, there were a few that were the faithful. Among them, the major figures were Elendil and Isildur and Anarion. And then they managed to survive the wreck of the island. They were on ships ready to leave, and they sailed then to Middle-earth and founded the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor, and that was when the big battle was taking place, when the ring was cut from Sauron's hand.
Okay, yes.
And then, all that's background to the Lord of the Rings then. Oh my goodness, it gets complicated.
No kidding.
But it's
just
interesting.
a wee bit. You guys get all that?
I guess I'm...
Yeah, I got it. No problem.
Let me get it in the book, and you can read it, but certainly Westernness is to be identified with Atlantis.
But before you close, just you were telling me the how shall I put the final objective, or the end time objective, or whatever, of Valinor. And it had something to do with the light in the trees. Is it going to be restored, or what?
Some light is restored, but they never get the trees back. And yet those trees, the white tree in Gondor, the one that Gandalf and Aragorn found up on Mount Mindalluin, and Aragorn brought it down and planted it, and the tree flowered again. That is a descendant of a descendant of a descendant of those trees. So that's why it's so special.
Interesting.
Why they wouldn't burn that tree. They would lay it in the halls of the dead with the kings in Rathdinan. And it's just...
The Ents aren't related at all.
What's that?
The Ents.
The Ents, I don't think, are mentioned in the Silmarillion.
Okay.
And there's a whole lot about the Silmarils and what was behind that. And then you hear about the Palantiri and how they were built and what they're good for. And you remember how they come in the Lord of the Rings. Like I say, all these things are just little...
the tip of the iceberg, yeah.
You see something, but it's something that really is part of the whole history, and it's amazing. The Valar, in the end, once men are denied the return to Valinor, and all the elves and the few others that make it are gone.
Yeah.
From the Lord of the Rings, it sounds like the last ship that makes it is that of Legolas and Gimli. That, what's that?
So I never understood that end, because I don't think I actually read the third book, but in the ship. What does that? Is the ship? Does the ship go to Valinor?
Yes, the ship goes to Valinor. It takes the straight road. Instead of being stuck to the curvature of the earth, it just sails off straight to this other place. And once that has happened, the way is closed. No one can go there anymore. We are bound to this world, we are men, and the gift of God to men is death. And so we get to die, but that also means we have to die. And the big temptation for men has always been to rebel against that, to pine against it, to feel that they shouldn't die.
Well, like in Hebrews
Yeah.
2:14, for fear of death, Satan
Have been
held.
subject to bondage all-
Are we in subject to bondage?
Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas are men.
What's that?
Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas are men. Oh, what?
No, Aragorn is, but Gimli and Legolas are not.
Well, then what?
Gimli is an elf. Gimli is a dwarf, and Legolas is an elf.
Yeah.
The elves, especially the high elves, are allowed to return.
And Legolas does return.
And Legolas does return, but he waits till after Aragorn's death, and he takes Gimli with him.
How can Gimli accompany him?
Well, it says that's a big mystery, and we have no idea, but our guess is that Galadriel, who was high in the esteem of Elbereth, who is Varda, who is the wife of Manwë. Manwë is like Michael, and Melkor is like Satan.
You mean, okay,
If you want to think of Christian
like Archangel
angelology. Yeah,
Michael.
archangels.
Uh-huh.
Then the Maiar would be like angels.
Okay.
And Sauron was a Maya. The Maiar is plural, Maya is singular. Valar is plural,
so he's
Valar
a
is
fallen
singular.
Maya, kind of.
He's a fallen Maya.
Uh-huh.
And Melkor is a fallen Valar, or Vela. Melkor is.
Okay.
Yeah. It turns out that Gandalf was a Maya. And that's one of
really?
the surprises, yes.
Well, where do you learn that?
In The Lord of the Rings, where he comes back and meets Aragorn and Gimli and Legolas in the forest.
Yes.
And doesn't remember his name.
Yes. After he's been transformed.
Right. And he says, oh yes, Gandalf, that was the name. Many names I've had. I've been called Tharkun among the dwarves, and I've been called Olorin I was in my youth in the west. And Mithrandir and Gandalf, all these names apply to him.
Yeah.
Well, then you start reading about the Maiar, and you learn that there is one of them that's called Olorin.
Oh,
And that,
my gosh. Did you learn this just by studying the text, or did you get a hint somewhere?
I don't remember. I know I have seen references to it outside of of Tolkien's thing, but I think I may have seen it. I don't know. I don't know where I live.
I bet there are forums where people chat about
my
this
goodness,
stuff.
they go,
These days.
Oh my, yes.
Yeah.
What about Frodo?
What's that?
What about Frodo? I think he also does something about
Yeah,
that.
Frodo,
Frodo
right.
goes to the west. That's very clear. That
Right.
comes right in the book.
And he's a hobbit.
He's a hobbit. He's not a man.
So you have a mystery there, kind of like
Yeah.
with Gimli, right?
Right.
Why should he be allowed? Perhaps since he had the ring on his finger so
the
long.
ring bearers are very clearly accepted. So Samwise also goes.
Oh, he does.
Yeah, in the appendices of the Lord of the Rings.
Really?
Yeah, Lord of the Rings here. Go get the third
Yeah,
book.
sure.
Yeah.
Because the way the movie ends, he's sort of
Yeah, the movie-
he lives happily ever after.
And that's the way the book ends, but not the way the appendices end. I mean, the appendices have lots of other stuff in them.
So he thinks he's going to settle down to this happy worldly existence
And
with
he
a
does.
with a pretty hobbit girl.
That's right. That's right.
But then he has this nagging sensation inside, perhaps,
Yeah.
that something's missing. He's being called.
Frodo says to him just before the end, "You have to be whole and happy for many years."
Oh,
And I see Frodo lad coming and Rosie lass, and all these. He's foreseeing all these children that Samwise is going to have.
yeah.
And
So, what's the name of this island again?
Numenor
No.
or Westerness.
Or Valinor? What?
Valinor is where the Valar live.
And
that's where they sail off
to.
to.
Ultimate west. That's the farthest west.
And that's like heaven, I guess.
That's like heaven, or
Kinda like
paradise,
heaven,
or
yeah.
something like that. If you want to make the
Comparison.
yeah. Here's the
So, Frodo, Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas sail off to Valinor, right?
again.
Samwise.
Frodo. What?
Legolas, Gimli.
No. Oh well. Okay. Not just like
Not at
that.
the same
One
time.
ship goes
Yeah.
with Elrond, Galadriel, Gandalf, Frodo, and Bilbo.
Yeah.
Okay. Then years later, Samwise goes. Years after that, Aragorn dies, And Arwen then goes up to Lorien and she dies. And it is long after that that Legolas and Gimli.
Wasn't it the case in the movie that Bilbo Baggins precedes Frodo in the ship, the
No,
burning
they
ship?
both go at the same time.
They do go at the same time. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay. Year 3021, the last of the Third Age. On March 13th, Frodo's again ill. March 25th is the birth of Elenor the Fair, the daughter of Samwise. On this day, the Fourth Age began in the reckoning of Gondor. So this is 1 year after the downfall of Sauron. 1 year after Frodo. Okay.
The reckoning of Gondor is
yeah.
a new mode of counting time, I guess.
Right. Right. On September 21st, Frodo and Samwise set out from Hobbiton. On the 22nd, they meet the last riding of the Keepers of the Rings in Woody End. So that's Elrond and Galadriel and Gandalf. And it's clear then that they are the three that carried the three rings for the Elven Kings.
Okay.
And it speaks somewhere of how Gandalf was given his by Círdan at the Havens.
Okay.
He knew that Gandalf would need it. On the 29th, they come to the Grey Havens. Frodo and Bilbo depart over sea with the three keepers. This is the end of the Third Age. And on October 6th, Samwise returns to Bag End. Okay, later events. In 1422, with the beginning of this year, the Fourth Age began in the Count of the Shire. But the numbers of the Shire reckoning were continued. In 1427, so start 1420. You remember he says at the end that a gaffer would put down his mug and say that was proper 1420. That's good beer. That was the good year, the year of plenty. It's right there at the end anyway.
Okay.
Will Whitfoot resigns in 1427. Samwise is elected mayor of the Shire. Peregrine Took marries Diamond of Longcleave. King Elisar issues an edict that men are not to enter the Shire and makes it a free land. 1430, Faramir, son of Peregrine, is born. 1431, Goldilocks, daughter of Samwise, is born. 1432, Meriadoc, called the Magnificent, becomes master of Buckland. Great gifts are sent to him by King Eomer and the Lady Eowyn of Ithilien. 1434, Peregrine becomes the Took and Thane. So King Elisar makes the Thane, the Master, and the Mayor counselors of the North Kingdom. Master Samwise is elected mayor for the second time. Eleanor becomes a maid of honor a couple years later. 1441, Master Samwise becomes mayor for the third time. 1442, Master Samwise and his wife and Eleanor ride to Gondor and stay there for a year. Master Tolman Cotton acts as deputy mayor. 1448, Master Samwise becomes mayor for the fourth time. 1451, Eleanor the Fair marries Fastard of Greenholm. 1452, the Far Downs are added to the Shire by gift of the king. 1455, Samwise becomes mayor for the fifth time. 1462, he becomes mayor for the sixth time.
Thane is a reference to a medieval English social
and
position.
Tolkien would say, well, I used the English word Thane to translate it. And if you read later on, he talks about some of those Hobbit names. But he also does say, nevertheless, we are the descendants of these. He wanted this to be a mythology for the English-speaking people.
Oh, yes. Because that was peculiar to England, I think.
Yeah.
There were no Thanes in France or anything.
1463, Faramir Took marries Goldilocks, daughter of Samwise. 1469, Mayor Samwise becomes mayor for the seventh and last time, being in 1476, at the end of his office, 96 years old. 1482, so this is 60 years after Frodo has left.
Okay.
Death of Mistress Rose, Master of Samwise, on Mid-Year's Day.
Okay.
On September 22nd, Master Samwise rides out from Bag End. He comes to the Tower Hills and is last seen by Eleanor, to whom he gives the Red Book, afterwards kept by the Fairbairns. So the Fairbairns are his descendants
Yeah.
from Eleanor.
Okay.
And the Red Book is the source of all of this stuff.
Okay.
The Silmarillion and the Lord of the Rings.
But was that the journal that Frodo was keeping? And
Includes Frodo's journal and Bilbo's journal and Bilbo's papers and the translations from the Elvish by Bilbo Baggins.
okay, the translations from the Elvish. Oh, okay, I see.
So among the Fairbairns, the tradition is handed down from Eleanor that Samwise passed the towers and went to the Grey Havens and passed over sea, last of the ring bearers. 2 years later, a message comes from Rohan to Buckland that King Eomer wishes to see Master Holdwine once more. Meriadoc was then old, 102, but still hale. He took counsel with his friend the Thane, and soon after they handed over their goods and offices to their sons, and rode away over Sarn Ford, and they were not seen again in the Shire. It was heard after that Master Meriadoc came to Edoras and was with King Eomer before he died in that autumn. Then he and Thane Peregrine went to Gondor and passed what short years were left to them in that realm, until they died and were laid in Rathdinnen among the great of Gondor. So that's 1484, and everybody except